Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Alex Dworkin and I'm a managing partner at 4D Capital. Today is Friday, July 11th. Happy Friday, by the way. And at 4D Capital, we specialize in a very unique mathematical approach to the stock market, where we calculate the market and individual stocks in three-dimensional space. And by doing so, we essentially can determine a perfect order within those securities and as a result project them well into the future in both time and price and on multiple time frames. Whether it's long-term or short-term, we can typically do it. Now, I personally believe our work is nearly identical to what Jim Simmons was able to accomplish at Renaissance Technologies, if you're familiar with Jim. What I did is, or what I will do, I will include a link to the description of our work, our calculations, the proof. You can take a look at it, check it out, verify everything that I've been telling you here, and I do highly encourage you to do that because personally I can talk about it for days if not weeks, and we're not gonna get anywhere. Now today we're continuing with our videos, and we're gonna be talking about one of our fast movers. And before I'll might as well tell you, you can see it on the screen, T-Moves, which is T-Mobile, is our upcoming fast movers. So what is a fast mover? What we found out, well, let me take a step back first and describe this in a little bit more detail. So we use cycle composites as one of our primary timing tools. It's very similar to Hertz cycles, but a lot more complicated because we use both up and down composites. And as I typically describe in my videos, basically there are multiple composites running in any given market or any given individual stock. So the bottom composites are responsible for bottoms, as is evident here on the chart, and the top composites are typically responsible for the tops. And if we combine both of them and there are additional ones that are running in any given market at that time, we can typically come up with something that very closely resembles the actual two-dimensional time and price chart. So this particular this particular chart is a perfect illustration of what we mean by fast movers. Okay, so what we found or what we noticed over the years is that when there's a small window of time between let's say a major top and a major bottom, not typically, but often there's a very powerful move during that period of time. So for example, here we're looking at crude light, and crude light put a major cycle top right here, as you can see the spike higher in oil, and then a couple of months later there was a major cycle bottom. So the time window between those 2 points is relatively short, and as we can see, the stock collapsed during that period of time. It was a very similar situation here, from mid-cycle bottom to mid-cycle top. It bottomed here, it needs to be a little bit adjusted, and then this is an old picture, by the way, not the actual forecast. And then it surged higher into the mid-cycle top. Once again, the period of time between those 2 points was typically, we'd like to say 6 months or less, but we'll take a year or less, but most of the time it's 6 months or less. And that's what we've noticed, whether it's applied to the overall stock market, currencies, commodities, individual stocks. When that period of time is relatively short, we have very substantial moves, or we have spikes higher or lower. Now, it doesn't always happen, but if we're analyzing any particular stock and we see that, it becomes very attractive, whether it's from short perspective or long perspective. And if you're holding the stock, it is a very dangerous period, particularly on the downside, because you have to pay very close attention. So our work allows us to identify those periods of time. So with that said, let's take a look at T-Mobile now and see what it says. So let me close this. So this is our typical analytical setup. If you've been following our videos, you pretty much know. I already talked about and described these cycles at the bottom and the top. Cycle composites, what I'm trying to say. The lines you see on the charts are our cycle clusters. And This is our secondary timing parameter. It allows us to identify the time. So what we do typically is we have our proprietary cycles, and we unleash them onto the chart, and our software picks out all those cycles that make sense and then projects them into the future. And here's another factor that we found out through our research and just noticed over the years, is that an important turning point in any given stock or the overall market typically happens when there are multiple cycles arriving at the same time, not when there's a singular cycle arriving at that juncture. So let's say we have 3, 4, 5 powerful longer-term cycles arriving here. The likelihood of a turning point becomes significant as opposed to a singular cycle arriving here. Okay, so what are we seeing with T-Mobile? So if we look at our cycle composites and we click on the bottom here, it's telling us that on September 17th of 2025, T-Mobile is going to bottom and then increase into February of 2026. So there's only a 3 to 4 month period of time between the major cycle bottom and the major cycle top. So this is very important. That means that this stock has a potential to become a fast mover. And as you can see, of course, the stock is declining into the bottom here very clearly. Okay. Now let me mention something very quickly. Don't go off this date. Okay. This is preliminary analysis that we use to identify these kind of opportunities. The margin of error associated with such a long cycle, as we see here, could be quite substantial. You know, we're talking about 1 to plus or minus 1 month at least, but it could extend to plus or minus 2 months. Now we have much more powerful cycles, for example here on July 31st and another one here that is on September 5th, that indicate that perhaps the bottom will arrive sooner. Now I am just as an example, let me click on one of the cycles, you'll see what I mean. So if we click on this powerful cycle here, you'll see it picked out a bottom before, and the top earlier, and a major top here. So this cycle is definitely very important for this particular stock, and we do anticipate some sort of action to it here. But point I'm trying to make is that the dates that I'm giving you here are not necessarily very accurate for the purposes of this video analysis. We have much better internal data that pinpoints the actual date. But for the purposes of this video, then, you know, just be aware that T-Mobile is going to the bottom. Once it bottoms, it should surge much higher and very quickly into this time turning point right here. Okay, so that's the overall analysis. Now the question becomes, okay, where is the bottom? And as I mentioned earlier, we analyze the stock market in three-dimensional space. We run our calculations. There's a link in the description of this video to a video that describes our process in much more detail. It gives a description and how to run those calculations. So if you're interested, I do highly encourage you to take a look. So basically, our software is projecting this green region to be the bottom completion point of this particular move down, and once it happens, we anticipate that much higher a powerful fast move to the upside, I should say. Okay, so the price variable here is $25 plus or minus $5, or no, I'm sorry, not $25, $205 plus or minus $5. Now that's a much better margin of error. And another very interesting and important factor here is that you see as the green region completes, if, for example, T-Mobile breaks down below this level, we can exit position with minimal loss, let's say a small margin of error, 1 to 3%, because if it does break below this region, it's guaranteed to go to the next one. Just it's a mathematical certainty, let's put it that way. Okay, so we can put a trade here. Once again, we have a much better data available to us internally in order to ascertain exactly where that particular bottom is going to be, as well as the trading setup. So, but the major point here is that once the bottom is hit at this region, once again, $205 plus or minus $5, then the stock is going to bottom, particularly at that time turning point that we were talking about, and then it's going to surge much higher. So our preliminary calculations suggest at least $300, but a print of $400 plus is highly probable. And that's what makes it so interesting. That's what makes these fast movers so attractive, because the move happens in a relatively short period of time. And if everything lines up perfectly, as is the case so far here, then of course you can make quite a bit of money, not only playing with the stock itself, but with options and so on. So hopefully you found this analysis interesting. We do offer a free trial where we share. I actually just posted a trading setup for T-Mobile, where we indicate exactly where we're going to take a long position, where the stop loss is, and how far it's going to run, and the actual most likely date where the bottom is going to arrive. Such is our analysis. But anyway, what I wanted to mention, we do have a free trial to our service. There's no strings, no credit cards, nothing. So if you do find this of interest and you want to know the actual targeting for this particular stock, I do encourage you to sign up and check it out. Once again, you'll find the link in the description of this video. That's it for this week. We posted quite a few videos. I do encourage you to check them out, and do encourage you to request a free trial and subscribe, of course. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, and we'll be back with much more next week. Bye-bye.